after the coffee break. We are here with Michael. Michael, welcome. He was with us in Istanbul last year at Startup Istanbul event. It was a great speech, by the way, he did in Istanbul. Still one of the top videos watching on our website. So thank you for accepting our invitation and coming here with us today. So I let you stay.
I thought you were going to interview me.
Yeah. Yes, but I mean, you should start, then I should probably ask you questions. And then it will be more valuable to me.
Okay. So my name is Michael Siebel. I'm a partner at Y-Combinator. I know there's at least one YC company in the room. Are there any other YC companies in the room right now? Ah, nice, nice, awesome. So I'll keep it really short and sweet. My goal is to do a couple things. One is to let everyone know that YC loves international companies and wants to invest in more of them. Right now, about 20% of YC is international. I think this batch has about founders from 22 countries. The second thing is that I want to help the entrepreneurs in the room figure out how to get into YC. So you can ask me all kinds of questions about applying, and I will give you all of the secret hints on how to get an interview. And then the third thing is that I'd like to, if there are any investors in the room, kind of answer their questions about what Silicon Valley invested in terms look like, why we invest the way we do, and why we might look really crazy. I would say the one thing in closing, because I want to spend most of the time just answering your questions, I only have a half hour with you guys, is a lot of the companies I meet internationally, including from Turkey, are stronger than the companies that I've met in the States. And I think people don't realize that. Because it's a lot harder to start a company outside of the States, you've got to be better. Because investors tend to want lower valuations and more revenue, the founders have to be better. And so you shouldn't be discouraged by the Valley. I think that, to be honest, you guys are more ready for it than a lot of companies that are homegrown. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. But
by the way, if you have questions, please raise your hand, then I will...
Cool. Ask me about YC.
What do you think of single founders? Is it a big disadvantage or?
Single founders are a big disadvantage. I would say every class we probably have, I don't know, on the order of maybe 5% single founders, so it's not impossible. Single non-technical founders, harder. Still harder, but we still have a couple of those in every batch. I think with the single founder, the bar is higher. We know it's going to be so much harder for them to be successful, so we're looking for an even more impressive person. But I would not say it's impossible to get in, so you should definitely try. Yeah. Cheers.
I mean, before jumping through the single founders thing, I'd like to ask some questions about your previous experiences in Justin TV.
Sure.
I mean, when you have founded the company, what were your first challenges, which already, I mean, some of the our entrepreneurs previous that this talk has also shared with us?
So before doing YC, I started a company called Justin TV with 3 other co-founders. It eventually became 2 different companies. Twitch, which just sold to Amazon for $1 billion, and Socialcam, which sold to Autodesk for $60 million. We started in October 2006, that's a long time ago, and the company was horrible. Absolutely the worst company. If you think your idea is bad, my idea was worse. It wasn't my idea, it was my co-founder's idea. So we started as an online reality TV show. That is a bad business. Don't do that. And even worse, we had to build proprietary hardware to stream our live video TV show. So we were a hardware company before crowdfunding, and we were building a content business in Silicon Valley. So basically it's the worst business humanly possible. And that's where we started. So if you think that you're bad off, we were worse off. Much worse. And what did I learn? I mean, I like the one thing that really stuck out for me is our team was 4 founders. We all split equity equally, and 3 of the 4 founders were engineers. And I think time and time again, when we hit hard times, having the technical ability to build anything and having equal partners around you was what kind of brought us through all of the challenges. So I tend to look for that. Very technical teams and equal or close to equal equity splits when we look at applications for YC.
How did it happen? Pivoted to Twitch.
Yeah. So this story we don't tell very often. Basically, in August 2010, Justin TV had less than 2 months worth of money in the bank, and we were going to die. And so we had a meeting where we basically said, either we're going to break even in the next 2 months or we're dead. So let's write down all the things we can do to save money, all the things we can do to make money, and we're not going to leave the room until this prevents us from dying. The next month we were profitable. That year we made $8 million in revenue in total and $1.5 million in profit. And we promised the company that if we did that, we would take them to Hawaii. So we did, the spring of next year. And so we were pretty proud of ourselves. August we were about to die, October we were alive. And then an advisor, kind of an informal advisor of ours, came by the office, a guy named Gideon Yu, and he basically said, your company sucks. Yeah, you think that you've accomplished something, but you haven't. Nothing that you've done right now anyone will remember. And in 3 years from now, this Justin TV thing will just be a memory and no one will care. And we were like, oh, fuck, okay. We thought we just saved the company, and he's like, you saved a pile of crap. So we decided at that moment that we were going to think of some new ideas, some things that we could do from the base of Justin TV that could become bigger businesses that Justin TV could. And 2 of those ideas were Twitch and Socialcam. So for Twitch, we had a small community of video gamers on Justin TV that we had always ignored. And so the thought was maybe we should pay attention to them and build the features that they want. For Socialcam, the idea was that we had seen Instagram starting to grow with the concept of photos and filters and so on and so forth, so maybe they can be an Instagram for video. So what we did was we decided we were going to give each of these projects 6 months. We worked on them simultaneously. And we figured at the end of 6 months, both of them would probably fail. We'd be back where we started, but maybe one would be successful. And it turned out both of them were pretty good. So
what's the process of being Y-Combinator after exited from your company? Do all successful startups being a partner?
Oh, no. The process of, what's the process of, after you exit your company, you go on vacation. I hadn't been on vacation in 6 years. And no. So a small number of folks are asked to come on at YC as part-time partners. That's basically a role they can do while they're working or while they're kind of between companies. And they can help advise companies. They basically spend about maybe 6-10 hours a month helping YC. And so I did that after I sold Socialcam for a year. And then last year in the spring, Sam asked me to join as a full-time partner, of which I think there are about 12 of us on the investment side and about 4 of us on the operations side. And I said yes, but I said only if I can take my 5-month vacation around the world so I can go see Turkey. They said okay.
And what is the, YC has been founded, I think, 2005 or 6?
2005, the summer of 2005.
Beginning from that period, is there a change in the model, or do you always get the feedbacks of the founders and also modify also this acceleration process, which also YC has started all over the world?
It's definitely a lot different. So I did Y-Combinator twice as a company. I did it in the winter of 2007, and I did it in the winter of 2012. And it certainly was very, very different. In the winter of 2007, I think there were 12 companies. In the winter of 2012, there were 64 companies. The last batch, there were 120 companies. And so a lot of things had to change. One thing that we do that I really, really love, I'm going to call this guy out here. Did you do your survey at the end of YC? Yeah. So one of the things we do is we actually send a survey out, and it sounds so lame because when you send surveys out, it's like, oh, that's lame. But we send a survey out to every company, basically asking for feedback and anonymous feedback. And you have no idea how much we read that. That's like because it's so infrequent that you get a report card, and like the founders are our customers, right? So that feedback is our report card. And that's kind of the base of how YC changes. The things that founders feel like need to improve are the things that we figure out how to improve for the next batch. So in many ways, we're just like a startup talking to our users. Yeah.
And also, do you have the success rate or these kind of statistics that you...
Success rate. What have we done? So I guess officially we've invested in about 1,000 companies, I want to say. If we look at demo day in the last batch, I think about 85% of companies who go through YC will raise money. The last batch collectively out of demo day raised somewhere between 125 to 175 million dollars. The total value of the portfolio right now, so all the companies officially is 30 billion, but it's going up. And I think the other thing is I think we have about 30 companies that are worth between 100 million and $1 billion, and about 6 companies that are worth $1 billion plus.
That's great. And how about the women founders?
Female founders.
Female founders.
So about, I want to say 22% of our companies have female founders. Women make up, I think, 11% of the total class. And one of the things we do for female founders is called a Female Founders Conference, which is very interesting because no men are allowed. So I've never seen it. I don't even know what goes on there. But I hear good things. But yeah, no, a lot of what we're doing is trying to increase the number of people who have access to startups and access to starting startups. Because I think that you need a diverse group of people to understand the problems of the world, and the best startups are going to solve the problems of the world. And so if we're only recruiting Stanford graduates who grew up in Palo Alto, unfortunately we're only going to be looking at a very small, very, very small number of problems. Mostly, where do I go to dinner? How do I share photos?
Following that remark, I would like to ask, the other accelerators are always, the other accelerators mean 500 startup is more active.
Who's that?
The other accelerators are more active in the
internationally. Yeah.
Internationally. YC is always staying, in Silicon Valley. Why?
So there's two things. One, YC has historically been massively understaffed. So until Sam became president in 2014, I think there were only 5 partners. And what I really learned when I joined at YC was like how much work there is. So only now have YC partners started to travel extensively. And so I think I've probably been to 12 countries, traveling, kind of meeting startups and so on and so forth. And I would say, each partner is definitely doing 2 to 3 trips a year. But that's just started. In terms of doing YC in the Valley, we think it's just ridiculously important to do YC in the Valley. I don't think we're ever going to launch a international chapter of YC. The advantages of the Valley are that we can introduce people to money at good valuations. We can introduce them to tons of other companies that can be mentors, that can be customers. And we can introduce them to the pace of the Valley, the speed that you have to operate at. We can't do that anywhere else. So a lot of our companies will come to the Valley, not a lot, but some will come to the Valley, and after 3 months will move back. But we think it's just really important for everyone to be exposed to this place. Also, we like living here. So.
And do you think that is there a bubble in the valuations for recently couple of years?
Not for YC companies. YC companies are cheap. Valuations have definitely gone up. That's for sure. I think that what's really happening is on the top end, you're starting to see companies that are really generating tons of revenue. And the news came out today, and I don't know if this number is official, but someone just reported that Airbnb is making $850 million in revenue a year, right? And so it's like, that's a real company. And so I think what's happening is that for the first time, there's a really large number, much larger than there has been in a while, companies that are generating real revenue that are, you know, $1 billion, $2 billion, $10 billion companies. And I think that when investors see that, it drives up all of the prices. And it really shifts a lot of the power from investors to founders, which we like. You know, we love giving the power to founders. So.
I mean, also this, the Bay Area has been, all the prices has been going up. Not only real estate prices, but everything. So it used to be an advantage of this area that the founders can leave probably lower kinds of salaries, but it is going to be changed, I think. Do you think it will be a problem for the long term?
I definitely think that the cost of living in San Francisco is going up, and the Bay Area in general. I think that, God, I wish people would work on that problem. But still, I think the advantages of the Bay Area are going to far outweigh those costs. And I think when you look at the startups that are successful, they're just very, very lean with the amount of money they spend. And so, you know, with YC, we give companies, we give companies our check, $120,000. I've seen companies live on the Bay Area with 2 to 4 founders for a year with that amount of money. And so, you know, is it expensive to get a big office and a nice apartment? Of course. But it's not expensive to live with 3 roommates, or it's less expensive, it's still pretty expensive, to live with 3 roommates and to work at a co-working space. So, more expensive, but, you know, not crazy. It's not, I mean, and when I think about where it was when I moved here, rent's probably only 50% higher.
It's great number. I mean, there is a story about the Airbnb.
Oh, and by the way, and the amount of money YC gives is much higher. We only used to give 20,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, we try to keep up with inflation.
There is a story about the Airbnb application, for example. Do you think that you miss some of the applicants who have applied to YC and in the process of interview or, I mean, reading the applicants on web?
So this is something that we also track ridiculously. And so whenever a company raises a significant round, above $100 million valuation, we go back and see if they've applied. So far, we're doing pretty well. We haven't missed any billion-dollar companies. I don't think we've missed any companies that are above $200 million valuations. But it's something that we're always very worried about. So when we read applications, we invest a lot of time in that. It's something that we're very, very worried about. And I think also we're concerned that maybe YC is harder to get into than it used to be. So I think that one of the things that we are thinking about is how we can change that or somehow try to do something that can allow us to work with companies that are earlier than maybe the average company in YC right now.
Are there any common variables that the 100 million valuation companies or founders that you have already sensed?
Not really. I mean, I think we're talking about less than 5 companies out of on the order of 50,000 applicants. So hard to draw much of a straight line data for that.
How was the last batch? Because I think you have grown up the number of selection.
It's big. It's big.
2 days demo day.
So the 2 days demo day, last batch was big. This batch is smaller. Batch is smaller. This batch is only 106 companies.
Are you trying A/B testing?
No, we don't have a target number of companies when we do interviews. Applications kind of continuously increase. So if you look at the batch that we got 120 companies in, the applications for that batch actually had doubled. So, we increased YC by maybe 25%, but we got 100% more applicants. So it got harder to get into YC. This batch, we have another, I think, 20% increase, or maybe 15% increase in applicants, and we're smaller. So it got harder again to get into YC. So, we really try to make sure that the best companies can get through. We really try to track the companies that are close that don't get in, and make sure that we stay in touch with them and encourage them to reapply, and do our best.
Also, I'm curious about which countries are most applicants coming from?
Canada. Let me think. I would say Canada, France, UK. On the top of my head, those are kind of top. I think
Germany?
After that, no, not as much as you would expect. After that, I don't know. It might be, I don't know.
If you have questions, please.
I heard Paul Graham in an interview once saying that he does not consider Y-Combinator to be an accelerator or an incubator. And I'm curious why that is, and what is the difference between Y-Combinator and an accelerator?
I have no idea. I can describe what we do, and I think most people know what we do, and people can put whatever name they want to put on it. I think that I don't like getting caught in the what's the label for it. I think sometimes people feel as though they don't want a label for YC because we're trying to separate ourselves from our competition. But to be honest, I don't worry about our competition. I don't try to tell our founders not to worry about competition.
What do you think of multi-site startups? Costs are really high in San Francisco. So can we as Turkish entrepreneurs use this as an advantage?
It's really hard. I've seen a couple people do it successfully. One of the companies that comes to the top of my mind is a company named Belabi that has got a business office here and engineering in Croatia, but it is very, 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 very hard. I think that company recruited 10 to 20 of their college classmates. And so literally, these are people they knew for years and that they were close with. So I think that
you wouldn't consider this as an advantage for a Turkish entrepreneur?
On the surface, no. Socialcam sold for $60 million, and there were 3 founders, 2 engineers. I think an engineer is a 1000x force multiplier if you put it in the right place. So having an army of engineers that are less effective because the team isn't together and they're communicating over 12-hour time difference, you got to be really good to make that work. Some do, but it's a high bar. A lot of times what I tell companies is it's already hard enough to do a startup. You want to be also an amazing manager of off-site employees at the same time. That's a hard skill as well.
Hi. So I read yesterday that you were looking to make post-seed investments as well as Y-Combinator. Can you comment on that?
I can't.
Okay.
I'll go next. So if you consider the companies coming from Turkey, what are the top 3 areas that you think that they can improve as they are applying or as they are progressing?
That's a hard question to answer because I don't kind of segment the companies that apply by country. Awkwardly, oftentimes it's hard. We don't even really know what country they're from until after we accept them.
Think of Eastern Europe, that area.
I'll say in general, right? In general, I think there are a number of things that are red flags for companies. So what I see is that like when I'm reading a YC application, it's a lot easier to look for negative than to look for positive. So I look for negative first, and then I kind of count the negatives in my head, and if there are not that many negatives, then I try to kind of build the case for the positive. So the negatives are no technical co-founder, founders haven't quit their jobs and or are not willing to move for YC. The founders haven't known each other for at least 6 months. The founders have split equity massively unequally. That's a big, that's kind of generally team. For market, it's generally that the founder cannot communicate why this is a multi-billion-dollar market. And that's like a really simple thing. It usually only takes 2 sentences. And then the last one is traction. Is this team moving quickly? We look at like, what stage are they in and when they started. And can we see this team is moving quickly? For some companies, that means you should have already launched, you should already have users. For some companies, that just means that you should be in your beta or you should have a demo. But like, we need teams that move fast because YC is so short. And a team that moves slow is not going to get anything done in 3 months. So literally, those are the red flags. If I don't see any of those, then I'm 80% of the way to saying this person gets an interview. So with that being said, I think the application and acceptance rate is a little deceiving. I think one of the things we like to talk about, I don't know why, is like, oh, it's really hard to get into YC. It's kind of, I don't like that we talk about it like that. I think that if you compare us to a university, the acceptance rate is a little bit not comparing apples to apples. Because if you didn't graduate college and never took the SATs and you don't really think that like you want to take a bunch of classes, you probably don't apply to Harvard. There are a lot of people who apply to YC who, you know, it's an open application. They have an idea, they apply. So I would argue that probably it's a little easier to get an interview than it might look from the outside.
I wonder what are the basic disadvantages if you apply to Y-Combinator from Turkey, for example, related to applying from here? What is the best thing? Is there any disadvantage at all?
No.
And what is, for example, the rate that people when they apply to Y-Combinator and they're from Europe, you have to call them for the interview? Is it something like a disadvantage for them, or
we have a travel stipend, so companies that get invited to interviews, we pay like a large portion or even all of their travel expenses.
Okay. And I saw your form, and also I listened to you at Startup Istanbul, and you highlighting that you don't want single co-founders. You always look for a good team.
Yes.
And I think your form is all about what is the team synergy? Are they get along with them, each other really good? But you still put the examples that Dropbox founder, like the examples that
he had a co-founder by the time he started YC.
Yes, he was like only one guy, and then he just put some. All right. Because I read his form, that's what he was saying, so I don't know.
I don't think I would describe it quite that way.
So
but Zenefits is a single co-founder, perfect example.
Okay, so basically, when you apply, and then, because you counted that, this guy is single, and etc., so we don't need to call them for an interview, or...
No.
Or, the idea is really good, or the person is really good.
So I guess what I would say is this. When I talked about those things that we look for, those negatives, it's not that if there's one negative in the application, it's, move on. The easy ones to move on for are when all of those negatives are in the application. Then you just move on. I would say for every negative in the application, you need to see something even better on the positive side. So if it's just single co-founder and everything else is amazing, of course you get an interview. But it's just like anything. If it's single co-founder plus not quitting the job, plus not technical, plus small market, plus haven't launched, plus no traction, that's harder.
Okay. Well, and one last question is: do you read all the partners? Are they reading all the applications?
So when we look at the applications, there's actually 2 phases. So we have about 200 alumni that'll take the first pass through applications, and they read all 7,000, and basically. They remove about half the pool. And so those are companies, and basically you need 2 alumni to say, maybe this should be looked at. That's the bar. Maybe it should be looked at. That's it. And then 3 YC partners will read the half of the application, so about 3,500. 3 YC partners will read each of those.
Do you ever accept any startups where not all co-founders are full-time yet? And or when do you require, at the time of registration or right after the graduation?
So once again, that's one of the things that we're looking for. Like, we're looking for that co-founder commitment. One of the rules that we have in our minds is, will this company exist without YC funding? Or will this company only exist if it gets into YC? If we feel as though the company will only be a real company if it gets into YC, we don't want to invest. If we feel as though the company is going to be a company no matter what, better. So that's kind of how we think about it. And then, to the particular situations, it really depends on that specific situation. But there's no, let's be clear, for every rule that I've said, there is a company in this batch that breaks it. So I'm talking about, 75, 80%, this is what we think about. But, we always have room for outstanding people who break every rule.
Also, we were used to watch live soccer games.
No.
Just a team, not anymore.
I had to wake up every morning at 6 a.m. because our site was crashing because of Premier League soccer. It was fun.
Do you care about the location of the market or just the size of it?
We don't care about location, but one of the things that founders really have a hard time with, especially in Europe, is there are very few markets in this world where a single country can represent a place where you can build $1 billion startup. Very, 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 very few. America, India, China, Japan, maybe. And so oftentimes founders are not thinking regionally. And so, what I would say is that 90% of the international founders that get in are thinking about how to either sell a product in one of those huge markets globally or in some large region. And one of the challenges I always have with EU startups when I was there was they have to sell outside of their country. In the EU, it's so simple to look at every one of these countries as a unique and special diamond. But if you do, then you have a unique and small company. And as you can see by America or Airbnb, Americans just don't think of the world as very complex. When we expanded into Europe, it's just, translate. We don't speak any languages, so have someone else translate. We're in Europe. That's it. And so, if that's what your competition is thinking, you've got to be thinking that way too a little bit. But we don't care where the business, where the market is at all. We really don't care.
You have invested thousands of applications. What are the major problems did you face with the entrepreneurs that you have invested?
Major problems. Man, startups are hard, and YC is like a pressure cooker. Some number of startups fall apart during YC. Yeah, not a lot, but a number greater than 1, and so that's always hard to see. I think the other thing is, what else is hard? The competition for fundraising is also hard. I think that a lot of people confuse best company with raise the most money. And those two things are very, very different. And a lot of people get really into fundraising and they forget about their users. So if you look at my batch, the top 3 companies in terms of valuations on demo day, one was an AccuHire, one was mine, 60 million, great, and one not doing so well. So a lot of times you tell the founders just being the top on demo day really doesn't mean anything. That's a big thing to communicate.
Do you think it's a good idea to use Y-Combinator if some idea is successful locally in Turkey? Just move that idea to the United States to have a bigger market?
I mean, it depends on the idea. I guess the thing I think about always is that the founders are a better expert in the market than I ever will be, unless you're doing online reality TV shows. So literally, it really depends on your understanding of whether America needs or could use that product. And I would say there isn't a hard rule of one way. If it works in Turkey, it doesn't work in America, that's not a rule. But if it works in Turkey, it does work in America, that's not a rule either. So, you know, if you want to, come and try.
Is there a question?
Thank you. A lot of the launchpads or combinators focus on very short-term market needs and try to build or help startups that can raise very quickly, move very quickly. But nowadays at the same time, if you want to have a product from a cutting-edge technology, you need maybe PhD students who can work on a problem slowly and make a maybe in long-term higher impact product. And there are some efforts regarding that. There is a technology institute called Cornell Tech that will be founded in New York, for example, for this purpose. Does the YC have such intentions to help such companies, or do you have some private programs?
I think we have a strong opinion about this. I think that there are two different things. There's a difference between basic research that should probably happen in a university setting and a startup. And I think that our opinion is that startups have to move quickly. We have a number of startups with PhDs. We have a number of startups doing crazy things. So my co-founder from Justin TV is a guy named Kyle Vogt. He started a company called Cruise, and his goal was to build a self-driving car, and it was pretty hard, I would say. When he joined YC, he had nothing. 3 months later, when he was at demo day, he had a car that drove, would kill you maybe 1 out of 100 times. A year later, he had a car that I was behind the wheel, checking my email, not looking out the window, driving down 101. 1 year. So what I would say is that people are kind of in two modes, like two phases. If there are companies or people who want to be in a kind of deep research mode, that takes a lot of time. Those are hard problems, and they should find the place that's good for them. We don't know how to do that well. The thing we know how to do well is when they are trying to bring that group of people is trying to bring a product to market.
I see. So, for example, for a, let's say, robotics company, that would take a long time to develop a product. It's not right place to.
We have a robotics partner. We have 4 robotics companies in this batch. Yeah, I don't think that there's once again, there are no hard and fast rules. I would argue that you get to set your pace, not us. I'll give you a crazy example. Well, no, I can't. That's in this batch. Needless to say, I have seen people do things with robotics with hardware, which is really slow, faster than you can ever imagine. It's just a combination of motivation and wanting to work really, really hard, and seeing a big market and having a lot of users who want the product. So yeah, but I've seen it.
There is another question.
Hi there. As you begin your talk, you mentioned that it's a lot harder to start a company elsewhere versus the States. I was wondering if you can elaborate on reasons why that might be.
So, anyone from Italy here? No. Okay, we'll talk about Italy. So, I was in Italy for about a month, and I asked a number of founders and investors how many funds can write a $10 million check in Italy? $10 million check. Now, almost every fund on Sand Hill Road down in Menlo Park can write a $10 million check. In Italy, there were 0. That's a problem. That right there basically illustrates the point. The Valley is built to fund these types of companies. The way I always think about this is that there are countries and there are typically cities that tend to be good at specific things, and the best people in that area want to go there. So in America, that's finance, New York. In Europe, that's probably London. And if you want to be the best finance person, you go there. And it's built for the best finance people to become very, very rich. Like that's what New York is built on. That's what London's built on. And I think that just like those cities have a finance specialty, there's some places that have a tech specialty like this. And so I think if you're trying to build a technology startup, at a minimum, there are things you can learn and people who can help you here. At a minimum. And it might be the case that you should locate it.
So, any questions? Last question, probably.
I want to learn a little bit more about the safe instrument that doesn't exist in Turkey.
Yes.
I think the Turkish authorities are very supportive of us.
Let's bring it to
as
Turkey.
investors, but we don't have different financial instruments like saving.
Yeah, so safe. So, okay, I know nothing about Turkish law, but I love the safe. So you guys have convertible notes? Is that what everyone uses? Yes. So basically, I learned about this recently. So YC has more influence than I ever realized on the kind of financing of companies because we do so many companies. And so back in the early days of YC, it was typical to see a convertible note with a discount, a cap, and a high interest rate. That was standard. And actually a low term. So 1 year, let's say a $3 million cap with a 25% discount and an 8 or 12% interest rate. Does that sound normal to you guys? Like, that was like where things were, let's say 2005, 2006, it's standard offering. One of the things that the YC partners did back then was standardize around why are we charging interest? Like 90% of these companies are going to die, 1% is going to be successful. If we want more stock, we should just buy it. Why are we charging interest? It's crazy. It's not like we have all this money and we're choosing between whether to invest in a startup or in the public market. But no. They brought down the interest rate to 2%. And that became standard in the Valley, 2% interest rate. Then the next thing that happened was we started getting all of these questions from our companies about the term of a convertible note, about, oh, is it debt? Does it appear on my cap table strangely, or my P&L strangely, or my balance sheet strangely? We started getting these questions about, should I do a discount? Should I do a cap? Should I do uncapped? How does that whole thing work? And what was hilarious is that one of the lawyers at YC, a woman named Carolyn, was like, instead of explaining all this crap every year, I'm just gonna make a better note. And so that's the safe. And what I love about the safe is there's literally nothing to negotiate. It's like, there's no interest rate and there's no term. And so all you're negotiating is cap. That's it. And if you want to do a discount. And so it just becomes so simple. Now you can really have just like a straightforward conversation. How much you're investing, at what cap? And then you're done, move on. So I thought that was such a genius approach because I remember joining YC and being like, man, these people don't know anything. We got to teach them this stuff. And she was like, screw teaching them. Let's just make it easy. So, it was great. I loved it.
Michael, thank you for a great time.
Thanks so much.
Welcome you back to Istanbul. And love to host you back if your agenda available. And I honestly thank you for a great speech and love to come back and probably deal flow lots of companies to YC as well.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.